But first, a new report by 2 universities says that children and young people are at risk of financial and emotional harm from loot boxes on video games. Now, loot boxes are a way that gamers can buy extras for the characters in the game, like weapons or clothing. But when they pay for the box, they don't know what's inside it. Previous research found clear links between those boxes and gambling, and in May 20 consumer groups across Europe branded them exploitative. Well, live now to Leicester to speak to Dr. Sarah Mills from Loughborough University, who was joint author of the new report along with colleagues in Newcastle. Dr. Sarah Mills, the conclusions you make in your report that children and young people are at risk of financial and emotional harm from loot boxes, what evidence of that did you find?
So our study found that children and families find it very difficult to track their in-game spending. Children told us that whilst they enjoy collecting these items from loot boxes, which are essentially games of chance, they also feel frustration, anger, shame and crucially regret at many of their purchases. And that's often because of the complex systems and mechanisms involved. So crucially for us, it's that those mechanisms of digital paid reward systems, they're borrowing techniques and design techniques from regulated gambling, so things like spinning wheels, showing near misses, engineering the feeling of luck, all without displaying the odds. And that's what encourages kind of repeat usage, that blurring of gaming and gambling.
And also with us is Andy Robertson. He's editor of the website askaboutgames.com, which is funded by the video games industry body called UK Interactive Entertainment. He's also the author of Taming Gaming, a guide to help families manage video gaming. Andy Robertson, as we heard 2 years ago, a House of Lords report recommended loot boxes be reclassified as gambling. Do you accept there's a problem with them?
I think what we see is that there's some correlation in that behaviour, but that's quite different to causation. In the families that I work with and speak to, it's pretty rare that you have these kind of outlying cases. That's not to say it doesn't happen. I think the important thing really is to help parents understand what loot boxes are and connect them with the really clear information of the PEGI ratings, which are the age ratings on boxes, which will state that it has game purchases with random items in the game that they're buying.
Yes, but I mean, on your website, there is a game that's got this age rating, PEGI rating. It's rated for 3-year-olds, and it has in-game purchases. Surely that's just encouraging gambling in children to have in-game purchases for 3-year-olds.
So that's the game saying the content is appropriate for a 3-year-old, but a range of players will play it. I think the important thing is...
but in-game purchases are appropriate for 3-year-olds.
But the advice I give to families is to play games together in a family space, to start at a young age, so that children and parents can learn and understand the value of the purchases they're making. That might be to buy games as a one-off price, but it also might be to buy small items in the game, which adds an element of that experience.
Yes, I mean, you seem to be saying parents and sort all this out, but 20 consumer groups in 18 European countries said they were exploitative. We heard about the other things. Loot boxes banned in Belgium and Japan. In Netherlands and China they're restricted. Australia's heading that way. Shouldn't they just be banned here, and that would solve all the problems?
I think they are becoming rarer. You see them less often in console games, and in those games they always disclose the chance of getting a particular item before you make that purchase, which I think is important to understand.
So if they would say it's 1,000 to 1 or something like that, then why on earth would anyone buy it?
It's because of that excitement of the chance of getting something. Again, much like those football stickers we mentioned earlier, that I remember opening when I was a child, and I did understand that I might get the foil badge I wanted, or I might get a football player that I already had. So I think going in with that anticipation and having a clear understanding of the chance is a really useful tool for parents.
Yes, so in fact football cards could also encourage gambling in that sense. So Sarah Mills, after doing your research, do you think loot boxes should be reclassified or banned?
Yeah, so our study is recommending that they should become age-restricted products for over 18s only. We're calling for a new independent regulator for the gaming industry, such that, when we go into a newsagent, just to go back to that example, the crucial thing is when you've opened that packet of football stickers, the newsagent doesn't spin a wheel and say, here's what you could have won, or come back tomorrow and have a free spin. And it's those kind of more aggressive forms of gambling-style systems that we'd like to see industry and UK government tackle.
So are they devised to encourage multiple purchases, like we heard from that young man earlier?
Yeah, so that's been engineered. You heard him say the game got better as I spent more money, and that's deliberate and engineered. So part of our study as well has been to interview game designers who tell us about the way they inflate and deflate virtual currency using kind of live analytics. And I think that's the key for parents here is we can't expect them to check daily or weekly, is $3.99 for 300 gems a good deal or is it exploitative, and that we can give more support to them, but crucially that UK government and industry can go further to support them and their children.
Yes, I mean, Andy Robertson, you do help parents through the website that, as I said, is funded by the games industry, but it's there to give information. This repeat spending, this multiple purchase, how can that be controlled by the advice you give?
So every modern console you can set up, does this console have access to spending in the first place? If you add a credit card, then it will be there. And you can then say, nobody can spend on this console without the PIN, and entering that allows that purchase. You could also set up a pocket money to say £10 a week, which is something I do with my kids, so that they can do a bit of spending, and together we talk about, is that good value? Sometimes they get it right, and sometimes they don't get it right.
And Sarah Mills, very briefly in a word, what's your advice to parents and grandparents?
So I'd advise them to please visit the charity YGAM's Parent Hub website, which gives resources and advice on gaming and gambling.
Sarah Mills and Andy Robertson, thank you very much indeed.